Cool. Okay. Hold on just a second. So, Ken here at Waters Garden Center. We're so glad you are tuned in, live streaming through our YouTube channel, LinkedIn channel, I think someplace else. Facebook. There we go. 3 places. So, and if you catch something, you just didn't quite get the notes, you're a note taker, you could go home and it will upload. By the time you're home, it'll be live at the top of our YouTube channel. That's probably the easiest, is just process. Or if you're a LinkedIner, if you're still working stuff, LinkedIn's a thing. I actually get as many views on that as we do on YouTube. It's crazy. But anyway, Ken here, Waters Garden Center. I'm the owner. I'm glad you're here. So this is a very specialized class. I like fruit trees. Some people don't like those at all because they're messy and they don't want a can. They don't want a fruit. They don't like leathers. They just like to go to Costco and buy their own. But it's not as good as fresh off the tree. I've got so many blackberries. It's going to be ridiculous next week. I don't know what I'm going to do with them all. It's bushels, but you can have that, and they do taste better, and they're better for you because you know they're not sprayed. You're picking them early to get them across the border for shipping stuff. The varieties you can't get, you can grow better varieties in your backyard. They're growing for shipment and shelf life, not for health and taste and these other things. So we'll cover some of those. So fruit trees, let me just get it right off the bat. You might find some citrus plants here, or you might be tempted. You go down to Phoenix and bring citrus up here, but they will die to the plant this winter. So we really don't encourage, sell, or promote citrus, grapefruits, oranges, lemons, unless they're dwarfed and you can bring them indoors and keep them in your garage, or you do your gardener thing. You know, I'll prove it wrong. I can grow this. But generally outdoors, it's so much easier. Just grow apples, pears, cherries, and peaches, and apricots, and nectarines, and plums. There's so many choices that naturally grow up at this altitude, just out there in the yard. And it's been a really, really good production year. So cherries just came off. Bushels, boatloads of cherries were just picked. Peaches have come off. Plums are coming off now. So it's the nectarines, apricots have been picked. What you'll find at this elevation, because we've got so much influence on the desert varieties, you'll find those desert varieties in all the box stores, orange and blue box stores, that aren't really supposed to grow up. It's an apple tree, but it's an early blooming apple tree. So if you planted that, it would grow beautifully, and you'll never get a fruit ever off of it because it blooms too early. The frost takes out the flower. Hey, Mackenzie, maybe we could. Oh, you caught it already. Turned off the music. Thank you. It was distracting. Good folks. I have to zone in on the conversation. So hey, we just turn the music off here at Waters Garden. We are live. We'd love for you to come down and visit us this afternoon. Say you streamed in and watched it. So our comment, we are a little player in the world of technology, or even in retail. You just comment or like or thumbs up or subscribe, Google kind of ranks us higher, which is very favorable. We appreciate that. Also, the handouts, which I should mention, there are 3 handouts today, specifically for fruiting plants. If you're a note taker, you're going to get my fruit tree book. It covers how to plant, cross-pollination charts, which fruits cross-pollinate others. That's always a question mark. I'm going to send that to you this afternoon through a new email, basically. So digital copies. It'll be a PDF or URLs. It's just you can download it on any device, iPad, laptop, your phone, whatever. So that'll be this afternoon. I've got strawberries, how to grow better. Strawberries do amazing here. How to grow blueberries. For you Midwestern folks, I didn't know I could grow. You can grow blueberries here. And then all the fruit trees. Okay, I'm going to have those 3 things for you. If you want that, put your email down there. I'm not going to sell your name. I don't care about any of that. It's just for you. And if you're part of our garden club already, it's not for all 10,000 on the list. It's just for you all. I've just sent it to you. If you could do me a favor, some of you, your handwriting is atrocious. I don't know how you got through life, but I've got it. I'm going to do this myself. If you could take just a moment and make sure it's a a 6 or a B, or let me help me get it to you better. It'll really help. How many, this is your very first garden class that you've gone to on fruit trees? 4 of you, really? Ah. Here's one on blueberries. Which one are you back here? Here's blueberries, and here's the strawberry handout. Do that too. You'll all have it, don't worry. I just printed 2 to tease you to ask for more. So, but that'll be to you this afternoon. After lunch, I'll kind of sit down and just do that for you. Okay, where to start? Fruit trees. So if you don't know where to start with apples and pears. They produce the most consistently at this altitude. The pitted fruits, we do a lot of pitted fruits. I just mentioned we had tremendous plums, cherries, peaches come off this year. But sometimes they bloom a little earlier in spring, and sometimes our springs are kind of wild. And so they get tricked sometimes in April to bloom a week early. And then we get that one last frost. And if you aren't there to protect it, it takes some of the blossoms. And so apples and pears almost always bloom after that last frost. And so they are the most consistent. You can almost count on them every year. You're going to get something off your apple and pear tree. So if you don't know where to start with those 2 because you're more consistent. Now, if you don't like apples and pears, don't start there. Start with, I would say the next ones would be probably peaches and cherries are the next most consistent producing fruit trees at this altitude. I'll go over which varieties, maybe over, out of all the peaches I mentioned, you don't want the desert varieties. You don't want a desert gold, desert. If it has the word desert in it, probably not for us. We're up in God's country, not down there living 10 miles from the sun. I mean, it's crazy. It's 100 degrees at midnight. Who does that? Come up here. And so you need fruit trees that can adapt to that as well. And so obviously here at Waters Garden Center, we're only going to have varieties of fruit that have proven themselves to fruit consistently at this altitude. So we can go over, again, you'll have the book that goes over all the lists. Here's all the peach trees. Here's all the plums. Here's all the apples that grow up here that have proven themselves. And then you have the pollination charts to help them cross over. Okay? So we went over apples and pears, then probably peaches, cherries are most consistent. Probably the first to bloom in spring, always the first, apricots. Apricots are either a feast or famine thing. You either have so many, I don't know how many, there's not enough cans in the kitchen to can all this stuff, or you've got one. And you're going to savor every minute, and the birds might have gotten part of it. So it's one of those, because they bloom so early, they are at more risk of getting the frost to them. Now that's in this Prescott area. You folks out in Prescott Valley, you've got one, maybe a few days earlier of last frost, so you can maybe not get damaged as much. As soon as you go over down to Skull Valley, Mayer, Dewey, those are now they're more. That's a true zone 8. They're click cooler, so they click warmer, and so it depends on your elevation. Really, what it comes down to, a big mistake a lot of folks make new to the area. They go, "Oh, I've got this beautiful. I'm on this hill. I got this beautiful dry wash. I'm going to plant my trees right next there. The wash will water my trees for me. It'll be like an orchard that the ranchers have put up. Johnny Appleseed planted this. Don't do that. Cold air settles in those dry washes, and you get more damage down there. You're better off planting further up the hill because warm air rises. You have, again, it's about spring and about the flower, and is frost going to take that flower? So that's the tricky part. And then it's about pollination, making sure you get the right variety so they help each other. But I'm just telling you, don't plant it down there. Plant it up a little higher, and you'll have more consistent fruiting on your trees, especially for those early bloomers. Nectarines and apricots bloom the first. So there's some inconsistency sometimes. So I'd say if you're going to rate them, go with apples, pears, then peaches and cherries, and then plums, and then nectarines, lastly apricots. But if you love apricots, you should have them. We've got the varieties that are better. So Chinese and Harcots are the better, more consistent producing apricots here. Mormon, that's another one. Mormon apricot. That's a more consistent one, and that'll be in the book to you here shortly. Okay, you'll have all the varieties there. Then you got to go with pollination. Which ones go with each other? You can't just have one with some of these things. So apples and pears like a buddy. They need help pollinating each other. And you can't have two Honeycrisps. You got to have a Honeycrisp and a Honeycrisp and a. It's got to be a different variety because a Honeycrisp and a Honeycrisp are not going to. They're not going to do that. They're not going to produce. It's got to be a different pollen to pollinate those things. Apples and pears are pretty consistent. You need multiples. Okay, pick a variety. Most of the pitted fruits, you can find one that has male and female flowers on the same tree. So apricots only takes one. Only one tree. You've got peaches, only takes one. One peach will produce itself. It's got male and female on the same plant. Plums are kind of dicey, so plums kind of need two. Santa Rosa will produce by itself, but it does better when it has an elephant heart or another variety, Satsuma. You have something else to go with it. It does better. Okay, so you get bigger fruits and more of them. So do a little bit of homework on that. Again, you'll have those charts. They're on the end of our tree racks, and then you'll have the actual printout. You can just look and go, which trees do I need? We are coming out with some new varieties because lots are getting so small now. There's less of these bigger range. I mean, yes, Williamson Valley, the Talking Rock, those areas are huge properties. You got room for orchards. Definition of an orchard: 7 trees or more. You are now have an orchard. If you have under six trees and under, you have a backyard garden. So that's truly the definition. Okay. So some of these new lots out by the airport, you don't have room for 7 trees. And so we're grafting on several varieties of fruit. They call them fruit cocktail trees or multi-grafted trees. So we've put several apples on the same tree. One tree, but has 5 different apples. I brought an example of that. I think I've got a cherry. Cherries typically do better with multiples and head. So this, they can see that on camera. Let's get it closer so you all can see. Here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 varieties of cherries on one tree. So now you can't put an apple, a cherry, a pear on one tree. They got to be the same genus. Otherwise they reject the graft. But as long as it's all that same cherry variety, it will accept that graft and it starts growing. The beauty of this is this branch will grow out and all the Bing cherries will produce, and then all the black tartarians and all the Vans and all the Stellas. And so you don't have to pick the entire tree all at once. It gives you a couple weeks to kind of pick off that stuff. But mainly we're bringing more of these in because one tree will fit in a smaller yard and it will pollinate itself. So this will do all the work by itself. Okay. Apples are the same way. Apples are. This is kind of freaky stuff. This is like, I'm bored and I've been doing this for 32 years. I want to try grafting. And so we put these things together. This is probably a 7-8-year-old tree. Grafted these on probably 3 years ago, and now the branches are starting to come out. And so now they're starting to mature. This has got 1, 2, 3, 4 different varieties of apples on the same tree. And we're getting varieties that will pollinate each other on the same tree and produce that are blooming later in the season, so they'll produce better. Then we actually graft onto rootstock. So all of our trees have a separate rootstock. We're getting way deep into weeds. Basically, why are water's trees better? Well, let me tell you why. We're grafting onto a special rootstock that takes clay soil better. So our soil is alkaline and very heavy. So there's certain types of rootstock we're grafting onto so it will adapt better for our environment. Anyway, that's fruit cocktail tree. If you ever hear that, that's what they're talking about. They've got multiple varieties on the same fruit, on the same apple tree. Main thing being, some varieties you can't just plant one and expect to have apples. You need to have 2 or a cocktail. The good thing about a cocktail tree too is it also pollinates all the other apples because you've got all of them right there. So if you wanted to add another Honeycrisp apple or something else out there, it would automatically, the bees would pollinate it for you. Bees are your friend. The question often comes up with pollination, how close do they need to be? bees are not very smart. Okay, we give way too much credit. If they can line of sight it and see it, they'll travel and pollinate it for you. As soon as you put a shed, a house, anything around in front of it, they can't see it. So anywhere in the front yard, as long as the garage is not in the way, your neighbor's yard, perfectly fine. If you can see it, the bees will pollinate and do all the work for you. As soon as you put an obstacle in front of them, you might need to get a little closer position. They do not need to be side by side. They can be separated further than that. So you can use them as landscape accent pieces in the yard. You don't have to. Our grandparents grew them, 20 feet apart, perfect rows, out in our orchard. The tractor would get in between. We're not doing that anymore. Now it's backyard artistry. It's landscape accents. It's softening up the tree line. It's privacy. We're using the trees for different ways. We just happen to harvest the fruit many times as well. So you can do that. You can have both. All right. So let's cover how to plant. I got that one next week. Next week, we're covering how to plant big trees. It's time to put in big maples, aspens, that kind of stuff. We're going over, here's how you do it. It's a great time to plant. The moisture, the rains are actually a second planting season for us. So spring is the most popular, but I find I'm more successful when the rains start, especially with the evergreens of privacy screens. You put a hedgerow of Arizona cypress or junipers or cotoneas, Rittifotinia, these bigger plants, they prefer when the soil is warm and the air is humid. That's the monsoons. So we're going over how to actually do that better and get more growth of the plants. That's next week's class. After that, bugs. Bugs are out. I don't know. I've got spider mites. I've got mildew. I'm actually trying to keep up with stuff. We thought we better just have a class on how to watch, what to watch for. And I'm sure we'll cover grasshoppers or blister beetles, shot hole, all that kind of stuff. I'm noticing this one. This is plum. I think this is Santa Rosa. It looks like Santa Rosa. Santa Rosa plum, #1 selling plum. Beautiful fruit, about this big. Santa Rosa is one of those few plums that will actually, it's got male and female in the same plant. So you need one tree. It will produce fruit by itself. And it's really good at cross-pollinating all other plums. So elephant hearts, satsumas, all those others. Beauty plum. This will pollinate all of those. Okay? My grandmother used to allow me to take the salt shaker out. I love green plums. It's a weird thing. It's a southern thing. I love green plums just before they turn color. They got this bitter, make your face like an IPA beer kind of thing. It's got this, oh, that's good. A little bit of salt. Oh my gosh. Here you go. Just go out and enjoy as many plums as you want. So I'd eat them until I was sick. So it's just so good. Oh my gosh. This one is got a little bit of shot hole. You see a little bit. I don't know if I can see where that is. Let's see if I got one. Yeah, here's a good example. Here you go. This is called shot hole. You see, it looks like someone took a shotgun and went right through it. It's very, very common for pitted fruits, especially plums. It's very, very common. Purple leaf plum, that's that ornamental plum that we have that's kind of vase-shaped with a pink flower. Sometimes it can put a little cherry kind of fruit on. It just depends. Basically, it's an ornamental plum. This is actually a fruiting plum. But this is called shot hole. It's a little bacterial thing that it's eating the sugars out of the leaf, and then the leaf just drops out. That hole just drops out. Doesn't kill the tree. You notice it when it's kind of small. You'll see more of it. As it gets big, you just don't, so big, you don't really see it that much. So nothing to really be concerned about. The best way to control this, airflow. Let the air flow through it. And so these trees tend to get so thick and full that air stops flowing in. Sunlight doesn't get into it. So if we can open it up some, that's that main winter pruning. Most of the pruning is done on these January, February, March. That's the heavy pruning. It's up to a third of the foliage mass is cut out, thinned out in one season before it leaves out and blooms. So that's January through after the new year through March sometime. Take your time. Right now, we are summer pruning, especially if you want to keep it smaller. So I'm growing, here, enjoy my shot hole. Just pass it on just so folks can take a look. They couldn't see it in the back, kind of get a feel for it. If you've got holes in your leaves, that's what it is. It's a bacterial thing. It's a leaf leaf spot, leaf mold, black spot, mildew, they're all related. It's a bacterial thing eating the sugars in the leaf, which is delicious. And then it just, when it gets done, it just dries up and falls out. So there's a little hole called chuckle. The way to deal with this, and I brought some pruners with me. I love my pruners. And this one needs to be topped. Not to make it fuller, it's just getting too tall. Now I'm growing peach trees in a large pot. I grow cherries. I like trees in containers. A big container. I've got a cherry tree, a peach tree. It's probably a trunk on it like this. It's pretty substantial. It shades my hot tub. And so there's an ornamental, like a miniature shade tree on the patio. And so it really wants to get too big or out of proportion for that container. And so I have to summer prune it. Basically, the height is going to be when I stand up on my hot tub and I can reach this far, that's how far it's allowed to grow. For you, it might be a little different. If you want to keep a fence line in between your properties, you want to let them get big but not too big, you can easily keep these things down to size. So a apple or pear tree, they're pretty big trees. So they're going to get up to about 25, 30 feet tall. It's not like a 80-foot cottonwood, but it's a shape. It's got some size to it. You can easily keep them smaller with summer pruning. Your pitted fruits are a little smaller. So typically they're going to be in that 20-foot range. So if it's 20 foot, 18, 20, somewhere in there, just let it go. If you wanted to keep it down to 12 feet, 10 feet, 12 feet, you could easily do that with summer pruning. Now there's 3 varieties you'll find in the racks out here. If it just has a standard name, Santa Rosa plum, it's going to get up to that normal height of about 20 feet. If it says semi-dwarf Santa Rosa plum, what we've done is, that's a grafting technique. We've taken a different rootstock and we've grafted that variety, same plum, it's on a different rootstock, and so now it restricts the size. So if it says semi-dwarf, it's typically going to be 25 to 30% smaller than its natural cousin. So instead of 20 feet, it'll be 12, 15 feet, just a click down. It's still big, but not full-on tree, okay? And then you've got true dwarf. It'll say dwarf Santa Rosa plum. These are freakishly small plants. They only get this big. They're more for garden accents, flower beds, containers off the back deck. Isn't that cute? They still have the same fruit. It just stays pint size. It just stays this big, literally on a trunk this big with standard size fruit. So there's 3 varieties: dwarf, semi-dwarf, and just standard. Okay, so we're doing that by grafting different rootstocks. Okay, so kind of, we're getting to the science a little bit too much, but you'll see that out here. This is a standard size. If you wanted to keep this smaller, like I would instantly take this one off. Like, this is just too big, and I would summer prune it. And now's the time when it's done fruiting, you just kind of cut back. You know, am I going to hurt my tree? No, it likes to be. Trees love to be cut on. It's like a beautiful woman having her hair just done. She just comes out and goes, "Whoa, that's gorgeous." Trees are like that. They're like a beautiful. They feel better about themselves when they have pruning. So you can prune up to 10% of the foliage mass anytime you want. Summer, it's 100 degrees today. 10% doesn't matter. Your heavy pruning, up to 30%. It's a third of all the foliage, all the branches. That's a heavy pruning, typically done when it's dormant, winter, in January, February, March. So there's 2 real pruning seasons. Right now, you're giving it a haircut. These are called suckers. So these long branches, they just want to be. She already looks better. Look at that. Yeah, there you go. I like it. Down the back. No peanut butter. What is that all about? While I'm doing that, so my peach tree, I'm going to do this tomorrow. Peaches are off. It's got too big. I've got the suckers. I don't want it to solidify and get rigid, and all of a sudden it's harder to prune. I want it to stay smaller in this container or in the ground for you. If you still don't want it to get that big, now's the time. You can do a light. You take all that new growth, just cut it back where the original growth was. You're not going to hurt the plant. Okay. What I'll also do is I'll try to open up, especially my pitted fruits, the inside of that plant. It's gotten all this new growth that starts to clog itself up. Notorious. Your peaches are notorious. Nectarines are notorious for clogging themselves up. Now the airflow can get through it, and so we can get some leaf spot. Things can happen. Okay. So I would just take this, if it's got a crossing like this one wants to cross it, I would just simply take that out and go, not worthy, I don't want that. So I want it to be open some. I'm just trying to get it. That shouldn't be there, shouldn't be there. What is this doing? What is that? Here we go. And then we're almost done. All of a sudden it looks better. Now air can get through it, sun can get into it, and it's a healthier plant ready for the next year. Now, this will get me through. Once I get started, I can't stop either. I don't, Lisa, there's a real pretty blonde down there. We've been married 37 years this week. So she likes everything wild. I like things more formal. So I always do this when she's not at home. So not advising me on how to do this thing. So, but I generally try to hold back some. Anyway, I'm just trying to open it up some. That's a little bit.
It looks like more than 10%.
Maybe this one, but it's a small plant. That's okay. So this is growing so fast, it probably is okay. Also, kind of an interesting side fact, trees, plants in general, but mainly trees, they have a growth hormone in the top first 18 inches of the branches. And so once you cut that off, so it puts all of its energy into that one branch. It just focuses, grow. As soon as you cut it off, it stops growing. It starts putting that energy into other parts of the tree. So it's that 18-inch thing. So if you cut it back about 18 inches, that branch will stop growing. That's really important for things like maples, locusts, sometimes aspens. They start growing down. Cut it back, they'll stop growing like that and start focusing to go other parts of the it'll make things look fuller when you get done. So you can control the shape of plants. So basically summer pruning, that was the lesson with this one. Just kind of open it up, and that's kind of a really good looking plum tree all of a sudden. So just with summer pruning. I had another here, this peach. Yeah.
Just for winter, you just open it up.
I would. Yeah.
How much more would it be just to sit for?
So his question for you folks online, I know you're there. That's why you got a front row seat. So his question was, how much more should I open it up in the winter pruning? I would be pretty aggressive. I would really open it up some. So, and then also I would prune it up. So I'm 6'2". I do not like ducking or dinging my head. So most of my trees are pruned up to, so I don't have to, so it's easier for me. So I can just walk through without dinging my head. If you're 5'8", go ahead. If you're 5'10", there's no science that says it has to be above this level. Make it comfortable for you in your backyard. We're not trying to get an extra bushel per acre foot. This is backyard gardening, not agriculture on a grand scale. So there's some flexibility. This one is just a mess. So it just it's got the sucker thing. Look, this is all brand. This whole branch is all brand new, and so but now it's getting lopsided. I want it to grow this nice, shapely level, and so I would cut this one back probably here, and maybe more. Cut it back here, and then I would just try to shape it up a little bit. So this is just a really happy peach tree. You're seeing a branch coming down this way. I would just cut that off and go. And I cut it back. This branch is coming up. This branch is starting to come up. This one's going down. I would just cut that one off, and just all that energy will now start focusing on this one. Then we'll start growing, just like that. I mean, you'll notice it next week. You'll start going, oh, it's growing better. All that energy is now. You can guide how it's growing. Your trees are growing, so don't let it do its own thing. So going down, it's growing down. Sure, peaches love to grow down. I don't know why. It's their habit. So start with that. I'm trying to open it up some because they start clogging themselves up. So anything that's crossing, going to the inside, I would just open that up. This is a happy tree. So this is going to produce like crazy next year. This year they're done. So now it's just putting new growth on to gather foliage. And then it will start this fall, as it starts to change color, it will start changing that focus into buds. And that's what will bloom next spring and form next spring's peaches. So it's kind of a rhythm. This one looks way out of place. Just going to shape it a little bit more. Again, it's hard to stop. So do I take this one? Again, this weekend, see, here's a broken branch. I don't know why it got broken. Probably just fell over in shipment or something. Anything broken, damaged. The wind had a ferocious windstorm go through that kind of broke a few things. Just clean that stuff up. The plant will be happier. This is kind of weird. Again, I might leave some of the stuff on. Take that one out. I might leave some of it on just because of the foliage. And I'm planning on this winter. I'll take that out later. I'll keep the foliage on now so create the photosynthesis, do all this magic with the sunshine stuff. But now all of a sudden that just looks much more beautiful tree, which is a little bit took less than 5 minutes to clean it up. It's mainly the sucker stuff. Don't let them grow to the moon. Keep them balanced and proportioned. The other one to watch too, if you're planting new trees, I encourage you, plant trees now. It's all the Phoenix folks, Tucson folks, Palm Springs. You're not living there anymore. It's not 120. You can plant. Their winter, for us, the ground freezes in the winter, so it's harder to get through that frost line. So January is a little harder. Now, it's almost preferred because the ground's moist, it's warm, things produce really well. You might still have to water some. Don't trust the rain with brand new plantings. The root ball is so small, but you can definitely plant now. The main thing, if you're planting a tree, especially a fruit tree, make sure it grows straight. Trees are notorious for it's innocent now, then in spring it loads up with 300 pounds of apples or pears or peaches, and all of a sudden if it's leaning, it just falls out of the ground. You really want to make sure that trunk is straight, and then you're trying to call it the scaffolding, the structure of the plant, trying to balance out that fruit load so it weights up on that tree balanced. Okay. If it starts to grow, if you don't stake it, it'll start growing to the northeast because we get this prevailing southwest wind. It'll start growing naturally like this, and all will be fine until you get that one spring when it just loads up and just literally you'll see trees fall out of the ground. The roots just pop right out. So that's why. So usually we'll stake them for 1 year with a couple lodge poles, bigger poles, one on either side, and just tie it once. Just tie it to where it can blow and it can move, but it just doesn't lean. Okay, I can't emphasize that enough. Also, kind of School of Hard Knocks. Hi, my name's Ken. I'm just a friend. We're like backyard gardeners. I'm like your neighbor talking over the fence. This has been a problem in my garden. I don't want you to have the same thing. You kind of want to use a lodge pole, not your smaller like wood, 1 inch or smaller metal stakes. The smaller ones, they tend to wiggle out. As the plant gets pushed around the wind, they wiggle their way out of the ground. The lodge poles, the bigger ones, they look kind of unsightly out of the ground. Once you get them in, they stay. And usually the next spring, I'll cut the tie between the stakes. I'll let it leaf in, and I'll see how it handles that next spring. If it stays up straight, then I break off the stake. The stakes are the hardest part. They're a pain to get in the ground. So before I commit taking those things out, I'll leave them there just to see how it does. Then I'll go, oh, looks like it's good. So, but usually once you put one new ring of wood on, that tree it becomes really rigid pretty fast. And so it also gets really rigid really fast if it's leaning. Once it starts leaning, it's almost impossible to get it back up straight. So you want to make sure while it's young, it grows straight. If you're in the mountains where it gets windy. Okay,
Those little things you sell to put around the trunk.
Yeah.
They're great.
Oh yeah, sure. It's good. Well, thank you. Okay. Could you say that on camera for us? What we have is we make a V strap. they get all kinds of, if you check the internet, you will be bamboozled by information. Oh my, I don't know what to do. We're trying to make it local. This is how you do it here. So we make basically what you'll hear is take wire, take some hose, put the wire through the hose, bend it around, try to keep upright. They make it really complicated. First of all, who has an old hose and want to butcher at their house? My old hoses, I throw them away. They're ugly. They're gross. So we make a V-strap. It's a wide strap that has eyelets on it that are easy to work with. And don't rub the bark off the trees. That's what you're. Thank you very much. We actually sell a tree stake kit, 2 lodgefuls, wire, and a V-strap, $20. We're trying to make it easy for you. You probably need 1 per tree. Okay, that's wanted to cover summer pruning, thinning out the inside so it doesn't clog itself up. Don't be afraid to cut on plants. They like to be cut up. They feel better about themselves. Okay. Went over the varieties. Let's go over so cherries. I'll just a couple others. Rainier cherries are kind of an unusual cherry. It's a light colored cherry. Melts in your mouth cherry. It does exceptionally well up here. And they're kind of one of those harder to find at the grocery stores. They're way more seasonal than a red or your Bing or Black Tartarians. You can grow these in your backyard. Just have bushels. This is Rainier. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about birds. That's a good one. Thank you for that. Birds like everything. Likes fruits. Everything likes. Deer love fruit trees. Gophers love fruit trees. Javelina not so much unless it drops on the ground. Then they'll grab them, but they're not going to climb a tree. They'll wait till it come down. Pack rats they like fruits. Birds are your nemesis. How do you keep them out? It can be a challenge. So there's netting. So we do sell bird netting. Just make it, as long as the trees are smaller, it's easy to put a net on it. Once they get up to a certain size, all of a sudden it's real hard. I have had good luck with scare tape. And they make a reflective tape that you tie on. It's usually red and gold. There's a couple different varieties, but they're flashy. The secret with the scare tapes, don't put it on too early because they get used to it after a while. Usually I'll wait till it's about the time you're eyeballing going, oh, next week's going to be pretty good. The birds are sitting back going, oh, next week is going to be pretty good. About then, that's when you want the scare tape on there because they'll get spooked. They're going, I don't know, just big long strips. I had a crazy neighbor. I had a fabulous neighbor, a gardening neighbor when we had 4 young kids at home, and he fed the neighborhood. We were kind of on his list. So he'd bring over baskets of produce. His name was Harry Hero. And so he was a crazy man. I thought, what's he doing? He had pie pans and a wooden spoon out there on his fruit trees. And so he just had them banging on each other. Anything to scare, spook the birds away, but he was keeping the birds away just with a basic pie pan and a wood spoon. And you think your neighbors are crazy, but really they're pretty smart on how they're doing this stuff. I basically have got blackberries coming off next 1 or 2 weeks. So they're big, just barely start to see some color. So I'm looking back and I'm going, it's going to be pretty good blackberries next week. I know the birds are sitting back on, they're doing the same thing. And so I think tomorrow I'll put scare tape on it just because that will keep them off. That'll spook them off until I get the harvest. They can have a few. I don't mind sharing. The birds, they like to taste this one. No, this one's better. No, this one's, they taste them all and run them all. They can just focus on one, that'd be one thing. But they're destroying all of them. It's unacceptable. So scare tape, it's really inexpensive and that'll work. So probably you're talking netting or scare tape. They're both down there for you. Yeah, shotguns, crock pot, sparrow stew. I don't know. Just kidding for you folks. Some of you folks are offended. Sorry. So let's see. I thought I had a pie cherry. So I also had Montmorency, a few folks are pie people. So the sour cherries, you can also grow those very, very well here. There's a couple of them over there. So one of these is one of those. One of those is a pie cherry. Just brought as a reminder for me, make sure for the pie makers, you can grow your own cherries and make your own pies. If you have an extra one, I love cherry pie. Remember me. So let's this out of here. I brought this one just because you folks from California, you can grow persimmon. This is a Fuyu persimmon. It's that bigger, sweeter. I love persimmons. As sweet as can be. It's bitter, the sweet, just like his sweet and sour. I'm not sure, but you can grow some of the weird fruits too. So persimmons do well. Nuts, not so much. So pecans don't grow at this elevation. They really grow at about 4,000 foot and lower. So you're talking Skull Valley, Kirkland, and then lower in the deserts. That's where they produce. They will grow here fine. They just don't produce the nuts. So you have this beautiful nut tree, it just doesn't produce any fruit. You need nuts on it. If you really want the nuts, probably move to almonds. Almonds do very, very well at this elevation. And walnuts do surprisingly well. We got the native walnut that grows at black walnut. It's got the sweetest, most delicious nut you've ever tasted. Just the shell is so hard you can't get through it to get to it. But the Carpathian, or the softer shelled walnut, also grows up here as well. So those, probably you're talking almonds are the most consistent at producing, and then you're talking walnuts. Those are the only two. I would say deer like fruit trees. So I raised my family down Skull Valley, and so we had a large family ranch. We're growing. It's a farm operation. And so we put a new tree in the orchard. The deer would come in, elk would come in. So there we had elk coming into they'd water Kirkwood Creek every day. And so you had those kind of struggles. If they were in the orchard, what we would do, electric fence, they're trained. We're in horse country. They know what those yellow insulators are. They know their nose is going to get zipped if they try to reach over. And so we went, they already know that. Let's see if we can put a field fence. We usually put put a new tree in. Peach, it's going to be a favorite. They're going to love that. We just put field fence around with about 4 or 5 feet, 5 foot or so. And then we put a dummy insulator on it. We didn't actually wire it up because I didn't want to string wire from the barn out to the orchard we just went, let's see if this will keep them off. It was very, very effective. Very effective. They just know, oh my gosh, you're smarter than you think they are. They also spot something different in your yard. Go, oh, let's go check this out. This wasn't here until last night. Let's go check it. And so they're very curious. So kind of protect them. I have had very good luck. I had the deer peeling off the bark. Some of my trees are kind of notorious apples. They really seem to like the flavor underneath the bark. If they're peeling bark off your trees, I had very good luck. You won't see this in the books. But I took bird netting, just lightly wrapped it a few times around it so it floated above the trunk, and just staple gun it on there. And that kept them off. It messed them up enough to where they kind of went, what is this? What's going on? I don't understand. And they moved on to hopefully my neighbor's trees, peeled their trees off, not mine. So anything to kind of trip them up, help them. They're not used to things. So make it different. And that'll kind of train them up. But they will like to eat your trees. So that's their natural thing. They like fruit trees. And so generally we let them get up to size. We let them prune them up to, they can stand up to about this tall and nibble on stuff, which is perfect because the tractor was about that low, so you could just ride underneath. So the deer naturally prune things up for us in the orchard to a certain height. So kind of watch that. So protect, they're going to go after. Rats, you just need to kill rats. You do not want rats in your backyard. Just put a trap line up. Do something, get rid of them. So anyway, okay, let's go over figs. Surprisingly, folks from Phoenix, you love your figs. You can have figs here. Now, here's the thing. Figs are not going to grow like a tree here. They're going to grow like a bush. Because what happens is the winter resets them back to the ground level, and so it'll kill off that top growth, and so it'll come back fresh, like a perennial, from the ground in a big bush format. So you won't see any big trees like you do down in the deserts because that winter reset. It's not every year, but about every 3 or 4 years it resets. So you never see a really big fig tree, but you do see very nice bushes. They still produce very nice. This is Chicago Hardy, one of the toughest figs, brown figs. This is called Figonomic. They put a weird name on it. Fignominal. They're getting too creative. Fignominal. The beauty of this is it's made to stay small in containers, raised beds, off that patio. It's made to stay small, so it doesn't get as big, but the same size fruit. Again, standard size, dwarf. This is a dwarf fig tree. So the structure is smaller, but the figs are the same size. Okay. Figs can grow. Same with you Tucson folks love your pomegranates. Pomegranates grow. Not all of them. There's a hardy variety or two that grow at this altitude. The rest of them get killed. This is one that grows quite well. So it's, again, traditional pomegranate. Gets up about head higher, so they don't get as big up here, or maybe just takes so long for them to get large, whereas in the desert they just naturally go bigger. So they're a little bit smaller here. Pomegranates do well. Grapes are amazing up here. So table grapes, wine grapes, they're all going to do well up here. Okay, so anyway, Thompson, Concord, this is Catawba. Again, there's some that are hardier. We're trying to skew it. We're trying to help you all garden the hardier varieties. We're bringing the varieties that are kind of proven to take our winter better. They all grow in the summer. They're like weeds. So mine have already grown, 10 feet. And they're producing little clusters of grapes right now. And so you can have that too. I'm using mine as got a half acre up in the Prescott Lakes area. And I've got a fence in the backyard. It's a big yard. It's got a big long fence. It looks sterile. Wanted to make it feel more garden-esque, more secret garden feel. And so big 6-foot cedar fence does not accommodate that. But as soon as you grow some blackberries, some grapes on it, some raspberries, all of a sudden it feels very rich. The birds are there, the butterflies, all of a sudden it feels like a secret garden. So I'm using grapes to do that quite a bit. In fact, I have kind of also bird gardeners. The front part of the yard is mine. You all can you can have that. The birds can have that down there. These alone. So my scare tapes and stuff go on the blackberries up here, down there. Enjoy. So I'm kind of gardening for both. The kids have left. I don't need Harry to feed my family anymore. I need a few things. I can get too much all of a sudden. So anyway, there you go. That'll teach you. Come on in. The grapes are for me here at Waters Garden Center. Blackberries, raspberries. I brought these. This is Indian Summer. Just personal experience. I find that one does a little better production. Some of the newer varieties are kind of the rock stars of the raspberry world, the golden ones. I know they're delicious. This one produces better. The thornless. I know you won't look like you've been in a cat fight when you get done picking raspberries, but this one produces better. So Indian Summer is just a personal, or maybe it's just in my gardens it produced better. I think it might be one to consider heavily, but it does have thorns. Be careful. It will scratch you. I do have thornless boysenberry and thornless blackberries. They produce amazing and no thorns. If you can have your cake and eat it too, do that. And so this one doesn't have any thorns on it, or very few. I did feel a couple of them, but not too bad. So some of them are so bad you walk by them and try to grab you and suck you into the bramble. This isn't going to do that. So anyway, this is heavy. Let's cover black blueberries. Blueberries like it acidic. They like sun. They like the altitude. They don't mind the dry. It's the alkalinity. So we are extremely alkaline. So your gardens are going to naturally go more yellow. Whereas most parts of the country where blueberries really do well, it's very acidic. So lots of peat, lots of like just real acidic. So they're always trying to raise their pH and make it more alkaline. Here we never do that because we're just so off the charts. We're always trying to make things more acidic, trying to bring that pH down all the time. So with blueberries, if they like to be acidic, just naturally give them a place that's more acidic. My name's Ken. Just friends, I'm just helping you garden better. My best blueberries have been in containers where I can force a lot of peat moss. So the main ingredient in potting soil is peat moss. Peat moss is very acidic. The containers naturally drain better and they flush all that mineral deposit stuff out of the pot better. And so these guys do better for me. The berries will be a little bit smaller, I notice, but sweeter. So you're used to those great big blueberries from the Midwest. Okay, they might be the size of a little bit smaller, but they seem to have more sweet. Same with grapes. My grapes are a little smaller, but they're sweeter. So big clusters, they just aren't those great big, like Napa Valley. Perfect move took me up to Sacramento for a few years. Man, everything. I could throw this hat on the ground. It would start to grow down there. It's amazing. The grapes were ginormous. The negative was, it's grape country, so all your friends were doing winery stuff. So if you go, hey, come over, have dinner with us. We're going to open up the new wine, which is almost always terrible. But you got to go try it because they're friends. Oh, this is good. Go to Trader Joe's, get some good stuff. Strawberries do amazing here, and we don't have to cover them or do any complicated stuff that other parts of the country do. Yes, we get cold, but not crazy cold. And so these are pretty much, you don't throw a bunch of insulation or straw or all kinds of stuff you'll hear. You can just leave them out there, and they'll come back and produce every year for you. It's real easy. I use this one quite a bit in my container gardens. Like I've got strawberries under my peach tree in the container. It's a bigger pot. The tree's growing out. Looks kind of open. Want to look like a garden growing out of this. I plant these and they kind of run over the sides. They produce strawberries. So they do amazingly well. I think we should use this more as a ground cover. Instead of vinca, it's number one selling ground cover, the little blue flower that grows as a weed. You could use some of this if you're really into edible stuff or fruiting things. You can't use the word edible anymore. It means something different. But fruiting things, you can use that really well. Real pretty too, because they put on this tendril that's down that bigger pot. Puts on these tendrils, kind of floats there. The wind catches. Really pretty plant, even without strawberries. It's a pretty plant. What else? I think I have. Oh, one last. So I bring this up just as a reminder for me to make sure I keep on track. Kiwi. Anyone know what this is? Kiwi, little kiwis. You can grow that up here, and it will actually produce little kiwi fruits. So it's a real pretty plant, soft, something different, unusual. Not everyone likes kiwi, I understand, but it's a pretty plant. Nothing else. So if you got a fence line, pergola, you can grow kiwi. It's a vine, very much a vine. And that's what I had. We covered animals, birds. Thank you. Food. Okay, let's cover food. You're going to need to fertilize things. Your ground is terrible. There's nothing good about it except alkalinity, caliche. Never heard that word till you got here, which is basically cement layer in the ground, literally. So you'll have to amend the soil a little bit more. When you're planting, we just covered next week's class just real quick. When you're planting, same depth as the bucket. You don't have to go down to China. Wide. Roots go sideways because they're going after water and nutrients. There's nothing down there except more clay, gross stuff. They're going to go after the good stuff up at the surface. That's surface water, irrigation water, food. Saucer shaped, so it's wide, saucer shaped. The soil you have off to the edge, some of you, it's nothing but debris and rocks. So you have to screen this soil out. So anything bigger than a golf ball, get rid of it. Because it heats up in summer and just bakes the roots. So you might have to, in Prescott Valley with our house out there, we have like little potatoes, little rocks like this, just they rise up out of the ground whenever it rains. Just I don't know where they came from. It's, woo, those are bad. You want to get those out of that soil, out of the root zone of that plant. Okay. Some of you hit a big rock, you go up to Timber Ridge, those areas, it's boulder country. You might be digging a hole. By the time you get done, there's no soil, just one big old rock. You might have to backfill some. But basically, getting used to the soil that came out of the hole. Now we want to amend that with some mulch. This stuff, gosh, this is just for you guys on camera. This is composted material. Mulch for you folks in the Midwest is like bark. No, we want it composted wood products. That's what this is. And we screen it down to 1/2 inch minus, so it looks like glorified coffee grounds or something. This is made to amend the soil, add some organics back in there. That's what's going to attract the worms, the mycorrhizal colonies, all the good stuff. That's what's going to help that plant root out into the surrounding soil. You simply take that dirt, put it right back around the roots. It's going to compact right back. The next time you water it, it goes right back to that natural hard state. You want to keep it light and fluffy so the roots can get through. Okay. Then we're going to fertilize it. Fruit trees need fruit tree food. There's a special food we make for here. This is 6447. We put an extra number on there because we're bragging about all the calcium we put in this. We're notorious for a lack of calcium here. And so what that causes is, like the squash, there's a lack of calcium. It'll form a fruit. The squash will fall off. The fruit will be smaller. That's flavor. Calcium brings out the flavor of plants. And so we know you're going to be lacking that. We just put it in the fertilizer because it's made for us, made by us for here. 6 nitrogen, phosphorus, potash. Nitrogen's for green growth. Phosphorus for fruits and roots. Potash is for stem sturdiness, thickness of the leaf, kind of disease hardiness. Those are the 3 numbers, what they do. The calcium is simply an added mineral that focuses in on the fruits. Okay. This is granular, so you put a handful of this around. Again, anytime you buy a tree, you get a handout on how to plant. Maybe I should. No, you have to come next week because we'll give that handout to you next week. That's what we're going over. But in a nutshell, that's kind of how you plant it. When I'm all done, I water everything in with Root and Grow because this plant is going to absolutely freak out. When you take it out of its bucket, put it in your ground, it's not going to be happy. It's going to have stress. So this is for stress, reducing stress. It's compost tea. You got to brew it up, and we pour it in a bottle. It looks like fish emulsion. If you folks from the Northwest, you love your fish gooey stuff in the bottle. Stink the high heaven. We eat the same stuff without all the stink. It's not as gross. So, but it's got like a molasses kind of thing. Is what it looks like. It's got a slight earthy smell to it. But it's made. I would do this every 2 weeks until I see the plant stabilize. Go, oh, it's growing. I'm a gardener. Look at that. And then it doesn't need this anymore because it's stabilized. It's gotten used to your surrounding soil. All right. Yeah.
Does the 744 also have calcium in it?
It had no. Her question was, does the 744 have calcium in it? That's our original. We have two fertilizers. I'm into the science of things. I like killing things. I like making things grow, that chemistry stuff. So weed killing, I got you. Killing rats, I got you. Making things grow, I got you. Weed, I got it. I can help you with that. But I like fertilizers. So the 744 was the original. Worked with a buddy of mine down in Tucson. That's a big time farmer. Said, help me figure this out. And so we've been tweaking that formula for a while. That one mainly has sulfur and iron in it. That's its main thing. But as soon as you add sulfur and iron, I can't call it organic. Because minerals, you can't put a mineral in a fertilizer. You call it organic. It might be all natural because they're natural minerals, but technically. But we have a lot, the newer generation of gardeners, they're very organic. And I'm kind of that way too. So when I want a true organic, this is meals, blood meal, bone meal, feather meal, all the meals. Now all of a sudden you get your 6447 and it's called all completely organic. I think both are fine for fruit trees. I've used both on my plants. I use both in my cucumbers, vegetables. But if you truly want organic, the waters, there you go, you folks online, vegetable and fruit food, this is pelletized organic. Organics are complicated. I don't know what all this stuff is, like hocus pocus stuff. I just went, just give me a good organic, pelletize it so I can spread it easier, and don't give me all these powders and tell me how to mix it. Just took I just made it easier to go organic. That's so effective. Whatever you do, don't use chemicals. Chemicals with alkaline water, and you're making microclimates, little tiny pockets of gardening. You put a chemical on there, it's going to vaporize your worms. It's going to make the plant grow crazy, but it kills all the stuff in the soil. So the long term, it doesn't help you. Short term is like heroin for plants. The long term, you want to use more natural products. The plants will do better for you. Okay. Questions? How are we doing? Yes.
What is the lifespan of a fruit tree?
What is the lifespan of a fruit tree? Very good question. It is not forever. Plants don't live as long as you think they do. Kind of like people. They got a time, and then they're out. And they've got an actual time where they're just ugly. Not that old. I'm getting some wrinkles and stuff. I don't have all the hair I used to have, but I used to be a really pretty man. I ripped abs. I had it going on. Okay, I don't have that anymore. So, but I still got some life left in me. But there's an age where they just get dead branches. You're going, oh, they're still alive, but oh, they look terrible. They're bringing your landscape down. That's time for the chainsaw. That's going to happen. Pitted fruits will be a little shorter. So they typically 15, 20 years. They start to get too old. Apples and pears a little bit longer. Just personal experience. They'll live maybe 20, 25. This Johnny Appleseed planted their orchard 200 years ago. That is a myth. That does not happen. That's not going to happen with trees. The production will start reduced. You'll start to see a reduction in production. The bark gets kind of raggedy. Disease gets in there. Slime flux. Things happen where they start to lose their vitality. That's probably a cue. Or maybe it's time. You can maybe cheat it because I'm obviously talking to gardeners. So for you, you can maybe add 5, 10 years to your trees. Most average homeowners probably less than what I just quoted. 10, 15 years might be. You don't take care of it. Does that help you? Get you close? Plums? Okay. Plums are going to be in that shorter time frame. Yeah, they'll tell you. The trunk's going to be substantial. The trunk's going to be. In Skull Valley, they live longer, but the water table is right there. So I just had that whole valley area is kind of an agriculture paradise, and plants lived longer there. They grew faster, and so that's why we were farming down there. So good question, though. Very good. Yeah.
How many years before some of these fruit trees would actually start producing?
How many years does a fruit tree take to start producing? 5 to 7 years. There's a maturity thing. They got to be 5 to 7 years old before they start producing. After that, they're growing, but they need the roots underneath them to start producing all that fruit. And then they keep going. So all the fruit trees we sell here at Waters, because the kind of client that shops here, don't want to wait. I had a nickel for every time I heard I wouldn't have to open a garden center, just retire. They don't want to wait. So all of our trees are purposely older. So they're at least 5, so on average 10 years old. So they're all going to produce like next year for you. We know who our customers are, so we don't sell the whips. So the box stores, you'll buy something there that's probably 2 or 3 years old. It's a whip. And so that's going to take 3 or 4 or 5 years before it's old enough to finally start producing for you. So that's, and just make sure if you're doing that, watch the desert varieties. Don't get tricked into buying the wrong variety for up here. Because, again, I had a nickel for every time I heard I planted this tree. Run from Home Dumpo. I don't know why. It's just not producing. Well, it's because you bought the wrong thing. That's why.
Is there a place around here like you get bee box?
Oh.
Where you can bring bees?
Oh, bees. I don't know where you get bee. I'm sure there's beehive, bee society, bee people. A lot of times you can get the box online. You can't find the local. You get the queen bee online. But I'm not a beekeeper. So I'm not sure, but I know if you went on Facebook or some social media place, they would instantly bother you. Oh, another one. Let's bring him into the fold. Another bee. Their boxes are pretty surprising how many beekeepers there are. Probably in your neighborhood. But you don't naturally have to have bees. You can attract them into your yard. Let me show you how. So, one of the best pollinators around are these two. So bees, butterflies, moths, those are pollinators. They all go flower to flower, and they're harvesting the pollen. Honeybees get all the claim to fame, but bumblebees do that. Mason bees do that. Flies. There's actually some of the bee-looking things aren't bees; they're flies, but they're attracted to pollens. Not house flies; those are nasty. But there's some other pollinating flies that can do that. So those are the things you're trying to attract into your yard. Butterfly bush is noted for butterflies, and all the butterflies, not just monarch, swallowtails, painted ladies, all of them. They all like this kind of plant, and some bees, hummingbirds, like that. And so I brought this one just because butterfly bush are huge. They'll easily get head high. Sometimes, they get huge, too big sometimes. These are dwarf varieties. This is as big as they get. They only get about 18 to 24 inches, ball shaped, but they're the same butterfly flower that the bigger cousins do. So we're introducing new varieties because it's such a strong plant here. And you are going to get pollinators drawing into the gardens. So I like to plant these things near my squash, near my pumpkins, near my things that are kind of harder to pollinate sometimes. I'm just wooing my pollinators closer to the plants. Hey, come on over, have fun over here.
How about they do in pots?
These are made for containers or raised beds, so because they just stay small. Whereas a big butterfly bush, it needs to be in the ground. So that thing's a monster. So I just brought them because this was introduced last year. This is the new color this year. Here you go. Red. There you go. Isn't that cool? Just a red butter. Your grandparents only grew purple. Well, I get bored with plants. What can we do with some other colors? I want them to glow in the dark. Literally, I was at a business meeting. The largest industry gathering was in Columbus, Ohio, our industry. So there's probably 15,000 garden centers in the country. We get together once a year in Columbus. Literally this year, this is freakish. There's a glow-in-the-dark petunia. Literally, I saw it. They can dark closet, glows in the dark, and it's the new growth, the flower, the new growth glows. And he grafted, I'm sure this is DNA genetics altering stuff, but he found a mushroom that blended into the DNA of a petunia. And I tried to get some. I can't have any. They're too new. They're just teasing us. I get to see things 2 or 3 years before. But you'll see next spring glow-in-the-dark marketing for stuff, for petunias. Quite honestly, it wasn't very bright. So on a real dark, moonless night, probably you would see it. If you're in the street light stuff, it's not going to shine. It's not going to be like a light switch. It's more like a moon glow, like fireflies. It looks like fireflies on the plants. That's what it looks like. So literally, that's why did I share that? Anyway, new plants. I can see new stuff. Watering. Yeah, let's cover that real quick. Brand new plant twice a week. If you're going to kill a plant, it will be from overwatering. So if these plants want to breathe in between water cycles. So you're probably going to want to deep soak it and then let it dry out and then do it again. Once they're a year old, in other words, once the roots have grown out of that into the surrounding soil, once a week should be more than enough in the ground. If it's in a container, my containers I water more often because containers are exposed or if there's wind, sun bakes them. There it might be every 2 or 3 days. In the ground, it's far less because your surrounding soil is like a huge sponge that allows the plant will actually absorb that water from the surrounding soil back into it. If you overwater it, like every day watering, that's a mistake. The plant literally can suffocate. It can drown from too much. The top growth of plants give off oxygen, but their roots have to have oxygen. And So if you fill up all those water pockets with water molecules, air pockets, water molecules, it'll drown. You have this rotting, brown stainings roots. You can always tell. So about twice a week for new plants, once a week for established. Okay, deep soak. Put them on your drip system. Treat them like your roses, your lilacs, your evergreens. Treat them like those. Good deep soak once a week. You're good to go. Great question. Yeah.
What's the drip factor for an orchard and the time that you would want to do?
I don't know. So she's asking me how often should I water and how much.
How much?
It
water?
depends on your system. There's so many variables. I have a whole class of just that, drip irrigation. So real quick answer. Why don't I'll just send you all next week's handout on how to plant. How about that? It's got all the stuff I just said, and it's got the water guide right next to it. That'll be part of the, if you put your name on that, wherever that clipboard is, you'll have that this afternoon, okay? You're talking about a 5-gallon plant. So this is a 5-gallon plant. This needs about 5 gallons of water a week. Okay, that helps you. So about this much water. Okay, a 7-gallon plant. This needs about 7 gallons. Okay, get a feel for it. A 10-gallon plant needs about 10 gallons. Getting it? So that can help you a little bit with the drip irrigation math. I've got 2-gallon emitters, and I'm running it for 1 hour. Maybe 4 gallons a week is not enough. Maybe to double that for this size plant. Maybe you need 2 hours or an extra emitter to get that quantity with the deeper soak. The goal is I find too many newbies water too frequently and too lightly. And so their roots, they're killing off the bottom part of the roots. They need to figure out how to push the water down deeper into the soil so the roots chase the water. So you had a deeper, stronger, especially fruit tree. If you got a real shallow tree, we don't like shallow people. Why would you like shallow trees? So you kind of want to have, you want to train them. You can train plants to go to root deeper. Okay, yeah. 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 Yeah, it's trying to get water deeper. So she's got a neighbor with white pipes, perforated pipes. That's way too much work. Just put a drip system in. It does the same thing. So you don't need to go through all these extra steps. But they're putting those pipes in so they can put fertilizer or water deeper into the soil. So they're training those trees to grow deeper. Kind of an old school. It's a classic 1970s. It screams the 70s. I could almost age the guy that did that. But anymore, we just do drip systems. You run them longer. So your drip systems probably need to run at least 1.5 hours to 2 hours to get that water. Again, it's a 1 gallon per hour emitter. An hour's for the time, only 1 gallon. You need 10 gallons on this. You can quickly do the math going, I need to run it longer. But once you push water that deep into the soil, you can now go quite a few days before you have to reapply or rehydrate that soil. It's kind of tricky, and there's no two gardeners. All of you are different. In fact, your front yard is different than your backyard. You'll find there's some different soils, the microclimates are different. And so you have to do your gardener thing, kind of read your plants. They'll get kind of droopy. They'll kind of tell you, I'm dry, I'm hot. So they'll let you know. All right, so I brought a couple of things, and then we're out of time. So with that, I'll leave you with some funky new echinaceas that you've never seen before, and then we'll just call it quits. Okay, so these are Shasta daisy. This is most famous. Your grandparents grew this one, Shasta daisy. It's a weed here. It can get really big. But we have a new double Shasta daisy. This is single flower. Singles, like typically petals are straight out. Doubles are typically multiple flowers. You get this depth to it. So you've seen this more pom-pom. This looks more like a mum than it does a daisy. These do really well, good pollinators. Okay, but I brought, because this is an echinacea, new white one. Your grandparents just said purple. Well, we've got red, yellow, white, which is freakish for echinacea. Kind of looks like this, way tougher. This is the toughest. This is a brutal wildflower. It just does really well. You can't kill it. Animals don't eat it. It's just a good plant for your full sun, a good pollinator. It's up. This is fully mature. What I'll do is I'll just deadhead this. When this is done blooming, I'll pinch it off. You're seeing new flowers come up next. So you just keep this thing blooming over and over and over. True perennial. These are all perennials. They're coming back year after year. And then the most interesting, this is brand new. You've never seen this before. Oh my gosh. Echinacea, but it's a double. You get multiple layers of the flower. And I don't know what color that is. Green, yellow, orange. I don't know. It looks like a mum. So it's kind of like a summer mum, only it's 2 months ahead of your regular mums. Again, perennial. So if you feel the plant's got this sandpapery kind of feel to it, that's how it defends itself against animals, because animals will start eating this. Those hairs get stuck in their throat. They're quickly going, oh, this is so tired. I need some water. And they stop eating. That's a natural. It's just plants are pretty smart. So that's how I have them and things leave this alone. But just some new echinacea. With that, I'll let you clap. I'll let you go. Next week, it is on how to plant big trees. We'll go into detail, all the logistics. And then the week after that, we're going deeper with technical. How do you kill things? Bugs, mildew, that kind of stuff. So take a look at our website, watersgardencenter.com. Look for an email from me. It'll be from you'll also have my personal email when you get done. So if you have other questions, you might quickly get buried, but you got my email. You try that. So make sure I get that clipboard. Thank you all. I'll hang out for as long as you want. I didn't get your question.